Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Future of Intake Documentation for Tax Firms and Accounting Professionals. This webcast is brought to you by CPA Practice Advisor and SafeSend. I'm Gail Perry, Editor-in-Chief of CPA Practice Advisor, and I'll be your moderator today. Before we get started, I'd like to explain how CPE for this webcast works. The webcast qualifies for 1 credit of continuing professional education. If you plan to earn CPE for attending this session, you must stay with us for at least 50 minutes. In addition, we will display 4 polling questions during the webcast. You'll need to record an answer for at least 3 of these questions, as this is our verification that you are still watching. Later today, you'll receive an email from CPA Practice Advisor that contains a link to your CPE certificate, assuming you met the requirements for CPE. Please note that we can give CPE credit for multiple people watching on the same computer. So if there are others in your office who would like to attend this event at the same computer, please have them join you now. And at the end of the event, we'll provide an opportunity for you to send us their email addresses so that they too can receive CPE credit. At any time, you can enter any questions you might have in the Ask a Question box that appears on the left side of your screen, and our speaker will try to get to as many questions as possible during the presentation. Questions not answered during this live webinar will be addressed by the speaker afterwards via email. Slides are available for download by clicking the Event Resources option at the bottom left side of your screen, and then clicking on the PDF file displayed. There's also a brochure about SafeSend available for you to download. Today we're joined by Andrew Van Vladriken, Senior Product Manager at SafeSend, and now we are ready to begin.
Thank you so much, Gail. I really appreciate that. So hello, everyone. Thank you so much for attending. Today, I'm going to talk about the future of intake documentation with SafeSend. Moving to my next slide. So what we see here is when we think about the future of document intake for tax professionals, at SafeSend, we have this sort of metaphor where we like to think of the entire tax process in a couple ways. We like to think of it as 3 main verticals. We have a gathering or an intake vertical, a front end, oftentimes referred. And the very end, we have a sort of delivery, or a back end vertical. And then in the middle sort of sits that your tax software, that's your preparation vertical, right? And so we have this intake, prep, and deliver, right? And at SafeSend, if anyone's familiar with our application or with our business at all, we actually started out in this delivery vertical, right? We really wanted to take tax return delivery and really bring it into the 21st century, really digitize it, take it out of paper, and make sure that accounting firms were up to date with future flows with that client experience involved. And this was a very successful, but we always still thought that there was a very big gap. And that big gap was really in that first vertical as well, which was that intake, that gathering piece. And so that's really over the last 2 years is when we really started to take hold and really started to consider and think about what we wanted to do within that space and within that vertical there. So that's what I want to talk to you about today. That's going to be our first mile conversation that we're going to have. So some of the learning objectives we'll have is we're going to talk about maybe streamlining client intake, with automation and with automated tools like we have here, about enhancing accuracy and compliance with those automated tools. We're going to talk about how all of this is wrapped up in a client experience that your clients will love and continue to ask for. And even at the end, talk about tips about how one might future-proof their firm going forward. So let's go into the agenda. So the agenda here is we have, we're going to talk about the intake documentation problem. We're going to talk a little bit about AI as well, how it's actually used beneficially, how we use it for the benefit. It's not AI for AI's sake in any way. You won't hear any love of that from me, but there are particular use cases where this is valuable, and I'd like to highlight and show you some of those. We're going to go into as well about the engagement letter strategy. I think this is an oft overlooked piece of that first mile. Going into the client experience, this is the thing that encapsulates every part of the tax process, from tax preparation to tax planning to even auditing and wealth management. It's all about the client experience at the end of the day. That is a key underlying foundation from all three pillars. Go into future-proofing the practice, and of course, we'll ask some questions that are in the chat. Okay, so let's talk about first the intake documentation problem. So we think that this is probably every firm's biggest headache, and this is sort of the reality of any busy season. I've personally, in my career here, have heard this many, many times. I continue to hear these items, and this is specifically for the front end, right? We have things where, how is it that, did you get my tax documentation? I sent in the email. God forbid I mailed it to you. For example, this is asked multiple times. You have file names either sent through email or through a portal like Dropbox, things named taxes, things named income, all of these file names that you have to actually open up and start playing detective for. Half the time they might not even be the correct document. You have engagement letter templates scattered across your entire firm. Different partners perhaps have different versions. You need to get the updated one. And of course, all of this at the end of the day is you have this robust staff that works like a well-oiled machine within your firm to make these things work. And instead, they're using their time, playing detective or having to organize digital files, right? And sort of what we see is like this first mile, even though this is generally from maybe like December to March, December to February, is oftentimes a very inefficient process. It's a very difficult process. And it doesn't really have the same level of, I think, respect that maybe the preparation and even that delivery area has, right? It's often overlooked. It's very inefficient, and yet because it's only, we have email, we collect these things, it's just part of it. Oftentimes it's very much just saying like, oh, well, don't worry about it until it comes around next year, right? And this is really the problem that we've identified and the problem that we really wanted to solve, right? And so if we take a deeper dive into this, we start maybe seeing some of the hidden costs of this intake problem that we have, right? So we have this poor intake documentation. We've done a lot of research and analysis on our side to think about, well, where is it that you're really seeing these issues, inefficiencies, and failures, right? These aren't everything, but a big one. Look, the delayed the start of the tax return process. I mean, how many of you listening to this right now have actually not even started preparing the return, maybe 1 week before the April deadline, simply because that's when you finally got the documentation. And now suddenly there's a very inefficient aspect of your preparation and delivery process because you have gaps throughout February and March in which there isn't too much to do. Not saying that you're not busy, but you have so much more capacity to handle these things, but you just don't have the data to fill this capacity. And instead it all gets pushed into this crunch time of April in which people are working 12+ hour days to get these in before the deadline, right? This is a major cost that I think sometimes we all just sort of consider that this is just part of the industry, but it doesn't really have to be, right? Going the second from this, direct correlation to this is the staff burnout, right? These 12+ hour days, especially before the busy season, especially like I turn my email off, turn my phone off, don't talk to me. This is where we see a lot of staff burnout, a lot of tedious work, a lot of manual, annoying processes, a lot of 12+ hour days within this process. You get a lot of staff burnout, you get a lot of turnover, and we know that in this industry now, finding really high quality talent is getting harder and harder, right? Let's go into some other areas as well. Client frustration. what you see if you don't have a dedicated automated process is there is a level of client frustration that we see in here about a very confusing process with constant follow-ups going through, right? You don't want to be in a situation where you have to ask them, did you give me this? Yes, I did. Can you come back? The client's like, where is my return? I pay you for this. Why isn't it done on time? Where's my refund? That client frustration leads to client churn, right? Sometimes we see situations where partners are doing the filing instead of doing maybe more strategic, maybe more revenue generating, more value add work. In some cases, they have to roll up their sleeves and get into the review and collection process as well. That's certainly a cost there. And of course, the lost productivity one might see from, the constant context switching between many disparate systems not connected to the manual work of filing emails and paper to get these things going. So the reality is your intake process is probably, every firm is going to be different, but your intake process is probably one of the most expensive inefficiencies that there are. And a lot of these are little, 1,000 cuts levels of inefficiencies here and there, that really start to add up over time, right? And so when we think about these, we think about, well, why do these traditional solutions sort of fall short to all of this? Because there are a lot of solutions to this obviously, like everyone has an intake process, right? So you've probably tried things like the generic organizer, right? You print out a maybe 20 to 40 page organizer, put it in a manila envelope and mail it out, hoping that you get it back with information. I'm sure everyone can think to themselves how often they get these back, how well or how quality it is filled out, and how fast that actually is, right? We at SafeSend, we feel like this is not an appropriate solution that largely doesn't work and is very slow when it does, but it's sometimes the best thing you got. And more importantly, it comes with your tax prep software. So you figure, well, I already have it for free, might as well use it. Another solution you might have tried, these self-service hubs, right? These are sort of these built-in portals, these drop-off boxes and everything. What we've noticed a big issue is having clients go to another place where they need another username and password that they arguably only access maybe once, twice a year tops. And they forget these, they contact you, and now you're spending half of the time that you would like to engage with them within the tax return process. You're instead, working as their IT consultant, right? We have the emails and spreadsheets. We have spreadsheets about who's doing what, which client is doing what, where they are in the process. And of course, we have, the old-fashioned email that sends things back and forth. But we know that this isn't really a long-term solution either, right? Things get buried in inboxes, you lose things, you lose context, and there's a massive security issue involved too with all of this, right? It is an insecure messaging that goes along with it, right? It works, but you need to be on top of it. It doesn't scale. And finally, there are sometimes fancy software that no one has to use. I mean, I think that there are many over-the-top experiences that claim, but if you need to get your whole team on board, it's difficult to use, it's very expensive. Trying to force this adoption, they just don't take it. They want something that is simple as the email and generic organizer with the speed and efficiency of the fancy software, which doesn't often come together. So what's been missing, we feel like an intelligent, simple integration that really understands the workflow process and attacks that directly, right? And so what we've come up with is sort of Gather at SafeSend, and that's what we call Gather. And it is this solution to this problem that is sort of has an AI component built in that is identified specifically to solve the core problem, which I'll talk about in just a second. But before that, I'd love to get a read of the room. I'm going to pass this to my co-presenter, Gail, for a poll about to gauge your interest.
Okay, this is our first of 4 polling questions, and it should pop up on your screen in a separate window where you can answer it. I just want to say before I even read the question, if you have any trouble answering this polling question, you can put your answer in the Ask a Question box, and we will record it there. But so the polling question is, which scenario sounds most like your current process? And your answer options are A, clients email documents and we organize them manually. B, we use organizers, but we still chase missing items. C, we have a portal, but completion rates are inconsistent. Or D, we have automated systems with high success rates. And I've been given a spoiler alert to have you consider when you're considering your answers to this. If you picked A, B, or C, we are about to blow your mind. So go ahead and pick the answer that is most appropriate for how the majority of returns are processed at your firm, and then click the submit button. And looking at the answers as they're coming in, Andrew, I would say you're going to have a lot of people whose minds are going to be blown.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're looking like we have about 4% of people saying D, which is very much in line. And to those people, I must, congratulate you. Absolutely. Not an easy challenge to overcome, but you did it. But yeah, I think we have a roughly an even split between A, B, and C. I think the email is very, makes a lot of sense. I think the organizers, again, it comes right out of the tax software. You already have it. And in theory, it's really like the perfect thing, right? If you could just get them to fill it out. And then, of course, we have a portal, but, we have a lot of issues with the portal as well that will come to view. So really appreciate answering those questions. So let's go a little further and talk about SafeSend's solution to the problem. And so the first thing I want to talk about this, and even though we sort of call it Gather AI, first things first, it is a workflow automation software, right? It is not specifically an AI tool. It is a workflow automation software. And what that means is it was built from the ground up on the concept of being a workflow and process automation tool. The goal is that you have a list of clients in which you need to send intake requests, document requests, questionnaires, organizers, engagement letters, 7216 consent forms, power of attorneys, et cetera, et cetera. All of these are slightly different per each client, but you know that you have hundreds, if not thousands of clients that each need something a little bit in particular, and you need to send these out all at once, and you need to track who does what and when. Right. So we saw that there was that gap in the market for like a truly all-in-one intake tool, and that we wanted to solve that. And that's when we started about a little over a year and a half ago. That's really, it's only been that long. So the idea was to bring all possible client intake deliverables into a central location with full tracking, visibility, automatic reminders as well. And so you can just send these out in bulk. It tracks who has done what and where, automatically reminds them and pushes them along, and informs you when they're done, so you can start working on their tax return right when they're finished, right? And so if you've used SafeSend returns in the past, we wanted to really recreate that magic of SafeSend returns, but for that front-end experience, right? We really wanted to recreate the ability of just saying, hey, I'm sending these out. SafeSend will take care of making sure the client is, walked through, well-adjusted, and reminded to finish these things. And then SafeSend's going to go and inform me when it's ready to go, but for that intake, right? So that was really our main focus and main goal. And I really wanted to emphasize that it's workflow automation first and foremost. That's what it's all built around. So, when your software gets smarter, we want to talk about the AI piece a little bit as well, because now I got the workflow part out of the way, but let's talk a little bit about what the AI here is doing. And I really want to emphasize that this isn't a chasing the bandwagon like AI. I feel like it is a very useful tool and technology when used specifically for real actionable problems. And we really think that we found some, right? So what we do and what our AI does is that we do largely two things. One, we read past client data and we will automatically make a document request list that is unique to what has from that client data from that tax software. And we'll pull that and make a customized document request list to send out, right? So you don't need to pull this forward. We'll handle that automatically. We'll read the past data. We'll roll this over and ask them for that going forward, so that even though you can batch these out and send them in bulk, they are still unique to that particular client. Now, the second main point is we've created our own in-house, and we store this locally. It does not go out anywhere else. It is completely stored locally, built by us, owned by us in every conceivable way, a AI model that recognizes source documents. Now, the document recognition, what it does is we have devised it to recognize, I believe, 32 of the most common source documents that most of your clients will upload. We're talking 1099s, we're talking W-2s, 1098s, 1095s, K-1s, for example. That's just a small smattering of it. Consolidated brokerage statements. We will actually go in, read the documents that are uploaded, and categorize them and say, this is a W-2 for taxpayer from employer information. This is a K-1 for the taxpayer from this entity. And we're going to automatically look at this and categorize these for you so you don't have to. Right now, let's be honest, it's not going to be the ultimate. It will recognize everything. It only recognizes 31 documents, though with very high accuracy. But the goal is, if we can recognize 50, 60% of the common documents and say, hey, don't worry, they have all the W-2s and 1099s, 1098s, and all the K-1s. These things are handled for you. All you really need to focus on is more of that interesting value add work, right? So we have this document recognition that does not care about the form name at all. If your client uploads a tax document, .pdf, like in this, we'll already know it's their mortgage interest statement, for example. We handle that for you and we bubble that up. We remove that guessing from you, right? All of this is also done real time. And so the system will tell you when these things have been uploaded and when they're ready. And so at a glance, you can say, okay, I have everything I need to start preparing. Now, the dynamic document request list that I mentioned, these aren't generic templates, though we do have generic templates for new clients or maybe for specific entities if you want to upload your own. But also we can generate these dynamically with that past client data. So it comes off as you can bulk these out, be very efficient, while simultaneously keeping that unique experience. And of course, there's really a client-first design with all of this, right? And what a client-first design means is we walk them through the entire process, step by step by step, guiding them how to do it. Most importantly, no passwords are involved, right? We have a separate type of authentication mechanism that works with a multi-factor authentication code that will go to maybe their email or their cell phone. So they don't need to build a username and password. And most importantly, you don't need to get a phone call from them saying, I forgot my password. What is it that I do? And the result of this is, a staff who can really focus on the value add tax work and less on file management and file reconciliation. So here's a little like an example overview of what our document recognition does. On the left-hand side, you'll see maybe some very common client upload names that you might have seen in the past, maybe that you might have already seen. It's a little early, but maybe you might have seen it already. And what we will see and recognize these is we can look at these and say, hey, I know this is a K-1. I know this is a 1099-R. We even recognize the railroad benefit slips. If you still have some clients who will update that, and we can take a lot of this mystery of these documents and we can convert them into real actionable value, right? We do this automatically, so you don't have to look in there. But of course, there's a preview step. that you can peek in the entire time and really take your own look, right? And this is what we've trained this on, and we've built this in-house from scratch to be able to recognize this with really that level of privacy and safety as the core value there. So another major piece that Gather tries to do is it really tries to consolidate this idea from, where are we in the process to when can we begin? And that was really like a foundational, like whiteboard moment when we were building this, is a core question that we were trying to ask ourselves, or a problem that we wanted to solve with this product, is we wanted, tax firms to be able to say, when can I start the tax preparation, right? And like we needed to make a tool that was able to answer that question, right? So let's take a look at the old way that we've identified as a very common, and especially from the poll, I think that kind of shows that as well. And then like how we took our new spin on those things to make our own updates, right? So in an old way, you might check your email for new documents. You might log into ShareFile. You might log into iChannel, look for different portals, for example, like Box, for example, and say like, okay, did anything come up here? Did anything come up here? Maybe you check your emails to see if you got a new upload. Then you have to download those out. You might have to open a spreadsheet to say like, did we actually receive these? Did we not? If someone made a mistake and didn't update something, now that's a rework. Sometimes you need to get all these files, but as like the last slide might show, they're poorly named. So now you have to open them and rename them yourself. And then sometimes in all of these cases, you just have to be able to guess that, hey, I think we have enough to be able to start their tax prep process. You send it over and realize they don't have it. A lot of half-finished jobs, right? So we took a lot of this and said, okay, how is it that we can solve these problems step by step by step, piece by piece by piece, right? So what we offer instead, real-time dashboard to show exactly what's complete. If you want to send your engagement letter, you want to send your questionnaire, you want to send a fillable organizer digitized through us, you can do that too, as well as the document request list. In real time, we will show you everything that you sent to them in the status of it. If you sent them, hey, here's these 20 documents I need you to upload, we will show you not only did they upload any, but which ones they uploaded, where they are in this process. If they signed the documents, you have everything at a glance. We've given you automated alerts to actually inform you, ping you, when these thresholds are hit, right? So once they've hit these thresholds, you'll be notified to say, hey, the threshold was hit, they're ready to go. And then you can jump in and say, okay, let's download all these things and give them to prep. They're ready to go. Automated reminders, again, I really want to hammer on this because of how important it is. The automated reminders keep the clients engaged. Not only is the client experience easy and holds their hand throughout the entire thing, but we will constantly, or I should say not constantly, you decide whether it's constant because you can decide how often the automated reminders go out. If you want them automated at all, they can be manual, but they will constantly nudge per your need. Your clients to say, hey, you're still missing a couple documents. Hey, you haven't finished answering all your questions, and move them along throughout the system so you don't have to, right? There's a clear visible about what's missing and what's needed. If you ever asked, where are they in this process? You have that at a glance, not just for per client, but per hundreds of clients in our dashboard. And then, of course, a nice, easy download for a one-click handoff to the prep team, where you can download one file where it consolidates everything into one very easy, actionable, digestible packet that you can hand to prep, and that's everything they need going forward. You really close the loop and close the time it needs from intake to prep, right? So really you can know exactly when you need to begin your work, no guesswork required, right? And I think a big thing that differentiates us is that this was really API ready from the start. Now, if you don't know what APIs are, that's perfectly okay. There are levels of enhanced automation available, but if you do know, we built, Gather with APIs usage from the beginning, right? So we have event-based webhooks, we have real-time status updates, and we in all of these endpoints to be able to connect all your applications. We have some firms already who are sending these deliverables and getting the signed documents, filled out questionnaires, and all of the source documents finished and automatically routed into their DMS and pings to their partners and preparers without having a single person touch it, because we built these automations in directly from the beginning, right? And we knew that was going to be a main idea. Remember back from the start, workflow automation from the start, and how can you have that without a robust API base to go around it? So that's Gather AI in a nutshell. So I hope there was some wows there, but there's an often overlooked second component to that intake form, which is really getting those initial engagement letters. Not just the engagement letters, everything that you need for a client engagement. Sometimes that's a POA, sometimes that's a 7216. And so that's where we have a new offering known as Letter Builder. That's what we have, and these things will work like part and parcel together, gathering documents, but also being able to build, send, and deliver these valuable engagement letters. And before we begin this section, I think we'd like to do one more poll, and I'll hand this off to my colleague, Gail.
Okay, thank you. This is the second polling question. The question is, how do you currently create engagement letters? And your answer options are: we use the same Word doc template from 2019. Each partner has their own version saved on their desktop. We have templates, but updating them is a nightmare. Or we have a centralized automated system that works great. So pick the answer that is most closely aligned with your own practice, and then click submit. Okay, and we'll leave this open for just a few more seconds, but it looks like most of the answers have been turned in.
Yeah, I love these results. So about 25% of users are picking D, centralized automated system that works great. And honestly, I love that. That's exactly what you want to see. That's exactly what we want to see. This is why we build products for just a solution that. However, it looks like we have about a third, 33% equivalent roughly for both A and C respectively, right? And this is very much in line with a lot of our research and understanding about what they do. Oftentimes, there is an old template that exists. Someone has it, just update the year. But sometimes a lot of this updating means you have to jump in. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself with the slides, but really great to see this data. I think this is exactly the kind of problem that we're trying to solve that I can show in going forward, right? So this is this sort of like engagement letter chaos that we're all engaged in, right? So based off of a lot of our interviews with firms throughout the years, we've kind of consolidated, some 4 common workflows that exist for most firms when they're getting this stuff ready, right? We find a lot that, generally search either some partner or maybe legal, search like a shared area that they own for the template that they used last year, remove 2025, put in 2026, call it a day. But of course, they have to go in as well. They have to copy and paste, changing information. Oftentimes, there's blank lines in which you need to erase that, put in the client name, erase the price, and put in the correct one. I mean, that's the most important, right? And you don't want a situation where you send an engagement letter where it says hello blank, and anything like that, right? Sometimes you have to email back and forth with edits. This is actually internally. I'm not even talking about a red line process, which we're looking to solve as well. But even internally, one might say you have to go to your legal consult and say, hey, is this good enough? No, we need to update this. And of course, you might have to repeat this process with every engagement, or maybe with every engagement type. Maybe the 1040s are fine, but what do we do with these new partnerships going forward, right? So meanwhile, these requirements change, these templates get outdated, you're never quite sure what's the right version, and you're really spending a lot of time updating these documents when you really shouldn't have to be, right? So that's sort of our core problem statement that we really wanted to go about solving, right? So we've come up with this new product, very recently released in July, and we're going to have a major new, I'd say like version 0.5 in July, major version 1 coming out in January. And really it's going to be an engagement letter template and an engagement letter builder instead. So here are some of like the smatterings of what we have available. One, we have a central template library that exists within our system. You can upload this, edit it once, and it's available for everybody. But most importantly, we have dynamic values built within these templates that you upload. So you have dynamic variables such as client name, price, jurisdiction, etc. And when you send these out to your clients, we will automatically replace those with the correct information, what they need, their names, their prices, etc., and we'll automatically send those out one click, right? We have smart content management where you update something in one area, it updates to everything. Most importantly, bulk generation, you upload the one letter into our template manager with all of the dynamic fields necessary. You can send these out to hundreds, if not thousands of individuals in one go. And we're going to replace all of those names with your client information so you know it's always correct. And of course, this is a seamless integration with the existing SafeSend workflow that just sort of goes along with it, right? It's sort of just built into the system so that these things can be used, right? These are the things that we thought really needed to be tackled and taken care of to kind of solve this engagement letter chaos, this problem. So we have this idea, templates, plus automation, that's time saved. Now this is, very much an average, but we have taken these anecdotal pieces from a lot of our firms. In a traditional process, for example, you might think they would open their Word document. They'll have to manually update the client details, erase Bob, put in John, check for any outdated language, updated legal wording. I'm sure with the advent of AI, I'm sure that has to be a piece that's included as well. I'm sure with any offshoring, that's a piece that has to be included as well. You got to make sure that's available. You might have to email them for signature, upload them one by one through Adobe Sign, for example, or even just email it and say, find a way to sign it and send it back. And then, of course, you have to track these signing statuses manually. Did we get the engagement letter? Oh, well, let's just do prep their tax software anyway. We'll get the signature later. Hopefully they'll sign it, right? Sometimes this can be 15 to 20 minutes per engagement letter. And I think this is a bit on the conservative side. Personally, we really wanted to err on the side of being a lot lower. But in our new process, you have like the one letter from the partner, from legal, whomever might make this. They'll upload that into the library. You'll sort of select all of the clients through an easy import with all the fields that you want to update. You can go ahead and apply that template. It's integrated automatically with our e-signature flow, which again, just like in Gather, is a guided step-by-step with automated reminders to get them to sign every document you want, not just one, but many. And then, of course, a real-time completion dashboard where you can see who's signed, who's outstanding, and who maybe has declined, for example. All of this gives you that update in real time, right? And since you can bulk and batch these out, if you consolidate all these together, time per letter comes into, again, I think this is, again, a pretty conservative estimate of, upwards to 4 minutes or less to get these down here. If you think even just 500 clients, just looking at these, approximate estimates, I mean, that's quite a lot, over 100, man hours cumulative, saved per each of these seasons, right? And we think this is like a huge white space to be able to take on as well. We're really shocked that there's not a lot of answers in the market for this. I mean, there certainly are some, but we feel like everything is so much more biased towards an individual get a signature experience, and they really outdate being able to send these and batch these out overall, while simultaneously having that real-time where are they view, right? And of course, all of this kind of is wrapped around the sort of like compliance made simple mindset. So what we're trying to do is really handle a lot of those difficulties that you deal with every December, every January, every February, right? There's version control, so you don't need to worry about if everyone's using the current template. You see a nice audited list of who has what. We have content standardization, so once it's updated in one area, it's updated across all the engagements. So that you're not sending outdated or different engagements to different people. Again, because of this, deep roles-based controls to be able to say who can edit, access, and use these templates, so you can ensure that certain individuals can just send these out, while other individuals can actually make the updates, send for review, check these things with a comprehensive audit trail that exists all around that. So you can see who made what update and when. So this is really, like, we want you to worry a lot less about compliance, making sure that everything's okay, and really more time, serving the clients, working on their prep tax return, really getting into that white glove service that is really the core, I think, of any firm going forward. And so I think this is a really often overlooked part of this intake delivery. People just say, yeah, just send them a document to sign. You don't even think about it. But really, when you dig in deep, I would really have everyone try and consider how much time and effort you really do spend making sure that these documents are sent out, signed, and delivered throughout a given year. I think it's going to be a lot more than you think it is. But okay, right? All of this is in service to one particular thing, right? And what I mean by that is all of this is in service to probably the core foundation of every firm that's listening right now, and that is a client experience, a detailed client experience. Because if the client doesn't like it, doesn't enjoy it, then it's a non-starter, right? So even though I talked earlier about these 3 strategic pillars, which we try and do like these bookended too, what holds these pillars up is the client experience underneath that I've been talking about here and there overall, right? Okay, so let's talk about really like where our mindset is. So we want, what is it that clients really want? I think there's a lot of insight that we can come. There's a lot of people who maybe have a lot of fanciful ideas that might be the case, but we found through a lot of our conversations, not only with firms but even taxpayers, is it's really not all that complicated, right? And so maybe we can start with things that they don't quite enjoy. So we found that currently clients, they're not filling out their organizers. Maybe amongst yourself, ask, how many times have you received an actual filled out completed organizer? I'd guess it's probably less than 1%. I'm sure you actually can count the number of people, them by name, who can fill that out, just because it's so rare and really so extraordinary, if I can say. But, they see this organizer, they don't want to fill it out. Something that we hear all the time is clients feel like, hey, I'm paying you to do my taxes. Why am I filling this out? Fair enough. They don't like multiple emails with different document request lists. They just want to know, what do I need to give you? Here it is. If they have to go to 3 different places in 3 different areas, they don't actually know what you need. They get worried because if they miss the deadline, it's them on the line too. They don't like that uncertainty about their submissions were received. Many times you say like, hey, did you actually get this? Are you actually starting on the return? And that's really difficult for you to communicate back when you don't have that process of where they are within the ecosystem. Oftentimes they don't like having no visibility. What they really want to do is have the bare minimum. They just want to be able to say, yeah, here's all my stuff, keep me up to date. And that's really what we're trying to solve, right? And finally, they don't want to have to hunt down the sort of correct email that was sent to them in their slew of other emails and spam emails and advertisements about where the engagement letter is signed. Oh, we haven't worked on your return yet because you haven't signed one. Well, where is that? Right. So these are really, it's not too complicated. It's not an easy problem. I wouldn't say that. It is a hard problem to solve, what they want, but I don't think it's a complicated problem. What they want is to be able to say, here's all my stuff. Let me know when I'm good, right? And so that's what we're looking at. They want clear, simple instructions about what they need to provide and when. They want an easy way to upload from any device, not just computer, but from mobile as well. They want a nice confirmation that their documents were received and that you're looking at them and working at them. They want real-time visibility into their progress. Oh, cool, I'm almost done. I'll finish this. They don't want to be thinking that they have to do this forever. And of course, they want one central location where they can just look, see what's going on and what do I have to do at a glance. They only want to have to engage with this once or twice a year for maybe an hour tops, and then let you do the work. And that's what's going to keep them coming back. So that's really our SafeSend client experience, and what we've built everything, not only Gather, not only our letter builder, not only our signature documents, but overall our returns piece as well was all built on this client experience, trying to tackle those exact questions, right? So from this client's perspective, here's kind of what they see, right? They received a clear, personalized document request list. It says, hey, here's everything that we need for your uploaded returns. And again, our AI will mark this off for them so they can just upload it and walk away. And it's going to handle categorizing that for them, and most importantly for you. They want to be able to upload from any device, especially with no passwords. I think that is crucial, especially if you think that a lot of your clients probably only engage with this once a year. I know I do. They're never going to remember this password year over year. And so they want to be able to be on their phone, look at this, answer some questions, take a picture, upload, and be done with it. That's what they're going to keep paying you for year over year over year. They want immediate confirmation that they've received, that you've received something and that they're good to go, so they know that you got it. They want to see real-time progress of not only where they are in the process, but hey, that their return is ready to go and ready for their review to sign so they can sign it. And of course, they want to be able to sign electronically with ease. They want to be able just to say, hey, here's the return, sign it off. It's going to be e-filed for them, and they know that they're good. And it is that peace of mind that know that it's done correctly and know that it is done for them that will continue having them come back over and over, bring their family, bring their children to you over and over. That's real value. That's long-term value. So that's really the client experience that underpins everything and what we've built all of these things on. So all of those things I talked about earlier, that's that firm side. But really, it's not. That firm side means nothing if it's not built on a strong, solid foundation of what the clients need. And I think we really do provide that. So as we sort of go around the bend here, let's talk a little bit about future-proofing your practice, and we'll go into another poll, and I'll send this over to Gail.
All right, this is our third polling question. What's your biggest worry about adopting new intake technology? And the answer options are staff resistance to learning new systems, client adoption and confusion, integration with our existing tax software, cost and ROI uncertainty, or security and compliance concerns. I kind of think we should have had an all of the above option on this, but go ahead and pick the one that is the biggest concern that you have about adopting any new technology.
Yeah, absolutely. I find with you and all of the above, everyone picks all of the above. We want to really filter
That's
through
true.
and say what's the worst one.
So we are getting answers across the board. Okay, it looks like everybody has answered.
Okay, fantastic. So a pretty nice distribution. I think the biggest ones, about 37 and 30% respectively, are client adoption and confusion, and that cost and ROI uncertainty. And you know what? I think this is very much in line with what we see. this is something that no matter what, the product can only do so much. You really need a team that is able to sit down and not only train users, but also help train clients into taking this on. And I know it's a big leap, but I think if the results will really speak for themselves when your clients really start using this. Okay, so let's talk about what future ready means. So what we think about when we say future ready, it's not really about having the latest and greatest technology. It's about building systems that scale. So, whether or not like you have 100 returns, 1,000 returns, 10,000 returns, that your process can handle this. You want to be in a situation where if, hey, our competitor in town closed down, can we take on 500 new clients? I want you to be able to say, yes, we can. Right? You want something that integrates seamlessly with your existing software. We know that the tax prep software is the bedrock here of what cannot change. It's so expensive, it's so cumbersome to change that. So you need something that will continue to exist and integrate with those ones, like we do with the major four. You want something that is, has that security level available. Because as you scale larger, you get more higher net worth clients. That security is going to be important. You want something that can really attract talent. Modern professionals expect modern tools, and you need something that can always provide real-time data. That's really going to allow you and enable you to make those better business decisions, right? And so what we have something is integration. It's really that sort of make or break factor, right? Because one product can't do everything. So you want something that is able to integrate with all your other systems, right? And so we know this hands down. We don't want to make, at SafeSend, we don't want to make a walled garden approach. We want something that can directly integrate with the other pieces of the tax software and firm management software that we can't do. We want to be able to work nicely with that. That's why we built everything on our direct API integrations. And that you can build custom integrations yourself. We have a lot of direct integrations with GoFileRoom, for example, with payment processors like CPA Charge and iWin. These are all things that we know that we are not as skilled at in doing, and so we want to be able to integrate with the best in show. So that if you already have a good tool, it'll probably work with us as well. And this is really good for that future proof, because you don't want to pick anything that doesn't play nice with others, because then you're going to be held back by this one application, right? So what happens if you don't adapt to these new things? So we find that firms that stick with these manual intake processes tend to face a shrinking talent pool. I understand that getting new talent into the industry is increasingly more difficult. And we feel that, while it's by and large not the most important factor, but, using new tools, technologies, and data-driven decisions, will help bring a lot more people into an industry that they might otherwise overlook. Really, the rising operational cost, manual work just doesn't scale going forward. And, you need to be able to scale with those updates. Client frustration, modern clients expect a digital experience, especially a mobile experience as well. More and more, they as time goes on, they will want less and less paper. And of course, that competitive disadvantage, right? If another firm is able to provide a faster experience to their clients at a lower price, they will ultimately outcompete you, right? So meanwhile, these forward-thinking firms, they're completing more returns with fewer staffs, which is more and more important every day. They're attracting top talent with modern workflows. They're delivering that superior client experience, which keeps those clients sticking around year over year over year. That's LTV. And of course, they're building that sustainable competitive advantage against their competitors. And so if we look at all of these things, like, how would we make this happen in the next steps? So one, first and foremost, before you do anything, if you're in any way interested by anything that we spoke about, I would look first one is an assessment phase. That is just in your head. This doesn't need to be on paper unless you would like to. Even on your ride home from the office back home today, I would just think about calculate the current costs of certain certain manual intake problems, identify what your biggest pain point is. Think about how often does it take for the average client? Does it really take for me to get their engagement letter signed, to get all of their questions filled out, to really get there at least 10 documents I need to work on their tax return? How long does that honestly take? And really see if this is a good fit, because it might not always be. One, we have like a pilot phase where you would come in, see what happens, see how it works, try it out a little bit, see a demonstration, and really measure the time savings for yourself. And then if you do like that and you see that, hey, this is working, clients are adopting well, we are seeing those time savings, which I think you will, this can be easily rolled out based on that pilot success going even further, right? And this can all be done through our systems here. We have a very streamlined system in which to handle this. And finally, here's just a little bit of our statistics, hopefully to just lend a little bit of credibility, right? Over 10 million returns delivered. We've been increasing, almost doubling our growth year over year. Obviously, we cannot do this forever. That's impossible. But still, it's been quite large over the last couple of years. I think most importantly, our KBA success rate is around 97.3%. That's really fantastic. You can make sure that everyone's getting KBA together. They're all IRS compliant. That's what you want to see. We have roughly over 90% of e-signatures, especially for those tax returns, completed within 15 days. And that's going down even lower. And these are all of the organizers, not only we deliver, but all the source documents we've uploaded in just this year alone. So just a little bit of what we're doing here. And I think I'll finish this off, pass this back to Gail with another audience poll question.
Okay, this is our fourth polling question. We would just like to know if you're interested in learning more about SafeSend. So your answers are yes or no, or I'm just here for the CPE credit. So go ahead and pick an answer. And while we do that, Andrew's going to take a look at some of the questions that have come in.
Yeah, no shame in answer C. No shame in answer B either. I want to say that as well. I'm seeing a roughly equal split, a third across the board. So that's fantastic. To anyone who said yes, we can have probably someone interested or reach out about that, and to no's and for the CPE credits. I think that's perfectly fine too. I thank you for joining and being available. And for the Q&A, I think I can take maybe a minute or two, to go to some of the questions that are available in this last minute or so. So I see one from Larry. Thank you, Larry. Do you have many sole practitioners that use the software? Yes, we do. Now, while we did create our system and software to be scalable to larger firms with multiple offices, this can still very much be done with sole practitioners. If you think you need that ability to bulk deliver and see where everybody is at a glance, I think that core use case is still there and available. So I don't see why it would. We can certainly use it with sole practitioners. I think the amount of returns you're doing for a sole practitioner is very admirable. So I have a question from Deirdre. Would you use this product instead of a portal and an organizer? And yes, that is our goal. You can actually upload the organizer if you still like to send it, or even just pieces of it, maybe just the Schedule E or Schedule F, for example, and you like to send those by itself. You can send those through our system and we'll digitize that through you and do all that tracking as well. You can ignore the organizer and the portal completely, and you can just send it through us and we'll take care of all of that for you with all of the extras that you would need available. I see a question from Brent. Is this compatible with Drake's software? The document acquisition part, the gather piece, is tax software agnostic. You can do whatever you'd like with that. Our current delivery with our returns delivery is not, but we are currently looking into that. Okay, so let me just hand it over. Thank you for the questions. I could probably answer more, but let me hand it over to my colleague Gail for an outro.
All right, Andrew, thank you so much for a really interesting presentation. I think we learned a lot, and I think everyone here is probably intrigued in the product. Don't forget that you can download the slides from this presentation and also a brochure about SafeSend. We hope all of you enjoyed this webinar. We really want to thank you for spending your time with us today. And we want to thank SafeSend for making this event possible and for enabling us to offer a free CPE credit to each attendee. And speaking of CPE credits, you'll receive a link to your CPE credit later in today's mail. In your email, it'll be from CPA Practice Advisor. If you have any questions about CPE, please contact me directly at gperry, G-P-E-R-R-Y, at cpapracticeadvisor.com. Also, if others are watching this event with you at the same computer and they require CPE credit, you can email me their names and email addresses. Again, that's gperry at cpapracticeadvisor.com. Right after I finish talking here, you'll be presented with a post-event survey evaluation form. We hope you'll share your feedback with us so we can continue to improve our webinar series. Thank you, everyone. And our webinar, our audio is going to end now.